And hello again, and here we are in my house for a change because it's been far too cold to do any work in my garage. It's unheated, so not much has happened in the garage for the last few days. However, I've been busy hitting the buy button on eBay. It's not too cold for that. And here we have just some of the parts I bought from eBay. And first of all, this cover here, this alternator cover, isn't from eBay. It's actually something that was attached to my ex-turbo drag bike engine a long time ago. And Les found it in his big pile of stuff. So my job this week is to get it all ready to go back on the bike, and that means rubbing it down with various grades of wet and dry sandpaper, then polishing it, then masking it, and then masking it off here to paint this centre part, and then finally going over the raised parts with some wet and dry to bring out the polished edges there. So that's something for me to do in the next few days. Now here, let me just move that out of the way. This big box here is actually not for the Mark II, it's for another bike. It's for the new Z650 project, so we'll forget about that for now. So this area here is what I want to talk about in this short video. Now, what I need for the Mark II is a set of front brakes. I don't have any yet. I have no calipers and no discs, and in fact the wheels are from a Kawasaki ZRX 1200, as are the forks. So you think, yeah, great, just go and buy some ZRX 1200 calipers and discs and so on, and away you go. Problem is, those wheels will not be staying on the bike. Don't like them, even though they've been well restored. Don't suit the bike for me, so they're going to have to go, and we'll get something else instead. So the choice of discs and calipers is a bit open at the moment, but I was very impressed with the so-called blue spot calipers that I fitted to the Z650 1170 project, and it turns out that there seems to be some general agreement that those so-called blue spot calipers, and indeed the 43mm forks that they go with, are some of the best fork and caliper combos you can get from Japan, which are not upside down. Is because the forks I've got, the 43mm forks and those blue spot calipers, are fitted to things like 2000 or so early R6s and XJR 1200s, and they're in the last development before the major manufacturers went over to upside down forks. So they are very popular, as it turns out, on custom bikes. You see it a lot on custom bikes because they are pretty damn good. So I thought, right, I'll buy another set of blue spots for the Mark II, even though it's got a Kawasaki ZRX front fork front end. So I went off and somewhere, I think it's in here, move this out of the way, that's something else, I found this rather nice set of Yamaha 4-pot calipers. Now these calipers, if none of you know, but they are monoblocks. They don't come apart like most calipers do. They're made in one block, which means yeah, they're very stiff and they probably work very well. So what I found here is, let's just unpack it. Get any oil on the table here. But what I went for was not blue spots, but these rather nice gold spots. Now, gold spots, as it turns out, out the way the gold's not impressed. Gold spots are a slightly better version of blue spots. The gold obviously got these gold anodized parts, and they're better because, well, apart from being gold rather than blue, they're better because the pistons in them are not steel, they're aluminium or alloy of some kind that have been coated with a ceramic finish, and that means they're lighter and hopefully, I guess, they work better, who knows. So these were the best ones I could find on eBay in the last few weeks. A lot of them you see have scuffs in them, scratches, the anodizing is faded, you know, you don't really need that. So these were the ones I went for. So I thought, yeah, great, we can get them on the Mark II. Just means we'll have to make a mounting bracket to go from these mounts to the mounts on the forks from the ZRX 1200. So yeah, okay. All done, all good, all good. So we'll put that away for a second. And then when I was at Liz's workshop the other day, I said, oh, have you still got the old Tokiko 6-pot calipers that belong with the Kawasaki ZRX forks I've got on the bike? He said, oh yeah, they're somewhere, they're somewhere. So I said, okay, we'll dig them out. So we dug them out, and here they are in the box. So I brought them home, and the idea was that, well, with these calipers, we can work out the distance for the mounting bolts on the forks, and from that we can then make a bracket to fit these without having to have the forks to hand, because the forks are attached to the bike's here, I can't really move it, so it just, you know, makes it more difficult to take measurements and get things right. So anyway, I got these home and thought, yeah, no problem, we'll try them out. And I was sort of taken aback when I opened this box, because my God, these are like brand new. They're absolutely immaculate. I don't know what they come off and, you know, how Les has got them, but they look like they've done no miles at all. I mean, they have, because obviously they're off a used bike, but must be a bike that didn't do very many miles, because as you can see, they look brand new. And I thought they'd be all grotty and dirty and scuffed and whatever, but no, they're actually fine. So I've now got a bit of a dilemma, because even though I've spent 100 odd quid on those Yamaha Gold Spots, I'm thinking, you know something, these are not too bad at all. I mean, yes, they're sort of dated now, 6-pot calipers are now out of date, and 20 years ago they were the bee's knees, and in fact I've got one of these, in fact 2 of them, on my Harley custom bike, because back when I built it, these were the best things to have. And on my bike they're all fully polished, but yeah, so I'm sort of in a bit of a quandary now. So what to do? Do I fit these? It's easy to fit, they'll fit straight on, no great problem. Or do I go to the trouble of making some brackets and whatever to fit these Gold Spots? Now, one thing about them is, apparently they're a lot lighter. I mean, obviously this 6-pot versus 2-pot, sorry, 4-pot versus 6-pot, you expect these to be lighter, and they are. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a massive difference, but probably 100 grams or so. 2 of them, so that's 200 or 300 grams on the front end of your bike. Yeah, you can see that's a performance advantage, but on a road bike, does it really matter? I don't know. I mean, these have more sort of cool points, I guess, because people can say, oh, look at that, you know, you've done some work there to mount these things to a Kawasaki front end. But these are just kind of, you know, quiet, they fit, they don't shout at you, they don't say, look at me. So maybe I think I might try these first, and then if I decide, oh, you know, they're a bit boring, they're a bit too uncool, I can fit these. But then, of course, it turns out that I've got a spare immaculate pair of Gold Spot calipers, which is not the worst thing in the world, I guess. And it got me thinking, because let me put these on some towel or something, not scratch the table, because as I say, I've got the blue spots on the Kawasaki Z650/1170. That's not a big deal, because the paintwork, which we've not talked about yet on the 1170, has some elements of blue, but it's also got some elements of gold as well. So I could actually just unbolt the blue spots and fit these Gold Spots, and I think, you know, the colour scheme would work either way. So that's a possibility. That would then mean I've got a spare set of blue spots, you know, so you can't really win. However, and I'm going on off sort of the subject at the moment, with the new Kawasaki Z650 project I'm doing, the Resto Mod project, one mod I'm doing for sure is updating the brakes. So I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, if I've got you know, a spare set of blue spots, they might go on the Z650, the new Z650 Resto Mod project. They're quite small, they're quite light, you know, and it's certainly a massive increase in performance from the standard old-fashioned 1-pot calipers from the 70s that the bike's got now. So that's a possibility, but I'm still thinking about that. So right now, as I say, I bought these to fit, but now having seen how good these are, I'm thinking, oh, perhaps we should fit these instead. It would be a lot easier, but I'm undecided at the moment, undecided. So we'll pop them back in the box, and then we'll move on to the next thing I bought. Let's move that out of the way. And that is, here's some behind me. And this in fact was the most expensive thing I bought all week. And this is where we get an issue with buying parts for the Z1000 Mark II engine, because the Mark II engine is very different, it's got some different elements to it from the earlier Z9 and Z1000's A1A2, and it's also different from the later Z1000J and GPZs. And that means it's like an intimate model, so certain parts from the earlier and later engines don't fit. And that means that those certain parts are rare, and if they're rare it means they're expensive, and it's a bit frustrating because you look at the ones for the A1 and the part is like 50 quid, fine. Look at the part for a J, 50 quid, fine. Look at the part for a Mark II, it's £150, and there's nothing you can do about it, that's the price it is. So this is one of those parts, and what it is part of the charging system. It's the rotor. and its gear, in fact I've not opened it yet, which I needed because I didn't have that for the bike. I'm not sure what happened to the original one, but who knows. Went AWOL over the years. So again, I also try and buy on eBay the best one I can find. There's no point trying to save, £10. And so, as I was saying before the camera shuts itself down, this is the rotor and drive gear for the alternator. Total cost £180, but it is pretty nice condition. As I say, I always try and get the best on eBay. There's no point trying to skimp it, because if that goes wrong, you're in a world of hurt. I also, of course, have to finish preparing and painting and polishing this part, which goes on top of there. So that's a job for me this week. So yeah, that's it so far. I may as well also tell you about what's in this box, because that's quite interesting. Okay, so while we're here, I've opened that big box, and this is what was in it. And in it is, hopefully, a rather nice, undamaged cylinder lock. And it's not for the Mark II. It's not, of course, for the 70. It's hopefully, or it might be, who knows, for the Z650 Restore project, the new project that we saw a few weeks ago, part one as it were. I've done a lot of research on various websites, on forums and so on, since I decided to go ahead with the project, and the general conclusion was that if you want more power, the cheapest and easiest way of doing it is to fit some parts from the slightly larger Z750 stroke GP Z750R1 engine, because they're essentially the same. So, having done a bit of more research, it turned out that they're also the same as the GT750, which is the shaft drive version. Block's exactly the same. So, it turns out the GT are cheaper because they're less sort of popular. So, I've got this GT750 block, and the plan is to fit this to the engine when it gets rebuilt. So, it's like to rebuild it completely. And if you're going to do that, you may as well do a full job. So, here we have the block. The photographs I saw showed it was had no damaged fins. That seems to show that's okay. Look at it, but don't worry about that. Yeah, it's got some. Looks okay. No obvious damage to the bores. They'll get rebored anyway, of course. Now, when it comes to reboring, you can get a rebored kit. I found a place called IMD and sells a full piston kit set for about £250, something like £220, which is pretty good value. Or you can go big bore and take it out to about 810 or 820cc. Wiseco people out make big bore kits for these engines, but that's getting quite expensive. That's like £500 plus, £600. Perhaps you have to buy it from the States. Who knows? More expense. So right now, my plan is, and it might change, we're going to just rebore this one size up, half a mil. Buy those standard-ish 1 mil or half mil bigger pistons and put it on the bike. Obviously it's all going to get cleaned up and powder coated and so on, as will the cases. Internals will be all changed. The engine of the Z650 has done 41,000 miles, which isn't too much, but it's getting to the point where you want to start looking in there and replacing parts. I believe the high volt chain is something that tends to go about 50,000 miles, so that will be changed. We'll go through it again, just like we've done with the Mark II and the 1170 engine, and get it all rebuilt better than new. But if you do all that, you may as well, improve it if you can. And clearly the way of getting even more power is to fit the head from a Z750, or even better, the R1, GP R1, because that's the most powerful head, has better cams and so on. But there are some problems with doing that, and one of them is that you lose the tacho drive. The tacho drive on the Z650s come from a worm gear on the cam, and the bigger engines don't have that, so you've got to swap over to a tacho from an electronic tacho. And yeah, you can get them, look pretty similar to the tacho on the bike ready, but that's another £90 or so. Then you've got to take apart the housing of the tacho, which is a bit tricky at times, put it all back together again, and it just ends up being, I'm not sure about that. And since I don't really need or want a super powerful, 810 engine, because I've got an 1170, got a 1400, why would I care about getting a few more brake horsepower from an 810 engine or this 750? I think what I'll do is, I'm going to use this engine, get the bottom end rebuilt, all perfect, get this board out, half a mil over, but I'm going to continue to use the Z650 head and cams, which might sound a bit weird, but what it gives you is a very torquey motor, because you get the airflow through the ports, because they're having to work a bit harder. Yes, now it won't give you absolute top end, because using the smaller inlets, the smaller cams, and the smaller carbs, but it'll give good power. I reckon up to about 6,000-7,000 revs, and it'll sort of get a bit out of breath. It won't get that big top end that you could get if you bought it out and fitted the head and so on cams from a 750 GPZ. But it seems everybody and their uncle have the same idea, and those GPZ heads are getting very expensive, very difficult to find. Whereas you can probably get a GT head for £4.50 and change. The R1 is like £400 or £500 for a good set, and it's all second hand anyway. You'll have to probably have it well rebuilt. So since this project is not supposed to be an expensive project, I've not spent much on it so far. Only this barrel cost me £50, and it's in good nick. Yes, it needs reboring, but that's not a big deal. So I don't want to go mad and just spend £5,000 on the bloody engine just to get an 810. It might end up being the fastest 810 in the country, but who cares, because I've got a 1400cc Mark II and an 1170 tuned SS650 in the garage, so I want to keep this as a vaguely sensible around town bike. Lots of low down torque, smooth, no worries, no overheating problems, so I think that's what we're going to go for. So this block can go away, get bored out. I've got to buy the pistons, then it can be either powder coated or maybe even coated with a hard ceramic finish from Camcoat. I'm not sure yet, not sure. So yeah, that's why I've got this here, and that's the parts I bought in the last couple of weeks when I can't really go in the garage because it's been too cold. So yeah, that's it so far, and we'll carry on with the video in a few days' time.